A trauma bond can make you stop asking if the relationship you're in is safe and have you asking instead, how do I get the loving version of them back? Trauma bonding is a psychological response where a person forms a deep emotional attachment to someone who's causing them harm. There's often a cycle of abuse, manipulation, or intense emotional highs and lows. The cycle may involve someone frightening you, controlling, humiliating, manipulating, or repeatedly destabilizing you. It's more than an anxious person falling for an avoidant person. So how do you know if you're experiencing a trauma bond? A trauma bond can be understood through a recurring four-part cycle. At stage 1, you'd be experiencing abuse or emotional distress, and this could be physical, emotional, verbal, or psychological harm. The second stage is reconciliation or affection. After the harm, the abuser may offer apologies, affection, or love bombing, making the victim feel special or cared for. Stage 3 is hope and confusion. The person may cling to the good times and believe that things will get better, and this creates emotional dependency. And then stage 4 is isolation and powerlessness. The person may begin to feel trapped, question their reality, and they may rely more on the abuser for emotional regulation. For a moment, you may have felt safe again. It could feel like you saw the person like they were at the beginning, and you remember the tenderness and thought, there you are, this is the real you. Maybe things are finally changing. But the relief doesn't mean that the danger has ended. It may simply mean that the cycle has restarted. You may stop asking, is this relationship safe? And begin asking, how do I get the loving version of them back? So if you explain more, forgive more, perform more, make yourself small, become more desirable, more helpful, understanding, try to look more spiritually evolved for the way they see the world, know that this could be feeding into a pattern, one built on a belief that your behavior determines which version of them appears. And if a brief return of affection strengthens your hope, leading you to sacrifice your true expression, maybe instead of defending the person and minimizing what happened, or obsessing over the rare, beautiful moments, instead of looking at the larger pattern, know that intensity is different to intimacy and that relief is different to safety. So why does it happen? The alternating between distress and relief, it can engage the brain's reward and attachment systems. Through intermittent reinforcement, unpredictable affection may become especially compelling. Our brains can get chemically hooked on the extreme emotional shifts, dopamine during the highs, cortisol during the lows. And this mirrors addictive behavior, where a person craves relief from the pain. And the only source of relief seems to be the very person that's causing the pain. This is often rooted in early attachment wounds. People with insecure attachments may unconsciously repeat familiar patterns from their childhood. We may first associate trauma bonding with relationships, someone staying with a partner who continuously hurts them, but occasionally it shows up that they're affectionate or that they're promising change. And it can occur outside of romance too. You may feel intense loyalty to a manipulative mentor, a controlling boss, a spiritual teacher who alternates between initiation and humiliation. It could be a family member whose approval must be continually earned. The roles may change, and the underlying structure it remains. There's harm, relief, then there's hope, and renewed attachment. How would you know that you're trauma bonded? Well, there are signs. There's major red flags. So ask yourself, do you justify and defend someone's toxic behavior by saying things like, but they've also done so much good for me, even if they've harmed you? Do you obsess over the good moments despite overwhelming negatives? Have you felt anxious, guilty, or afraid at the thought of leaving? Do you believe that it's your own fault and feel that you need to work harder to be loved? If you've got multiple red flags on your flagpole popping up, then consider that you may be in a trauma bond. One sign alone cannot tell you whether you're experiencing a trauma bond, but if several patterns are present, especially alongside repeated harm, it may be worth seeking trauma-informed support. So what's next? Well, first up, on some level, a congratulations, because you may have completed the first step, that being recognizing a cycle. Next, it's helpful to drop any self-judgment that you may have, and it's because this has nothing to do with being weak or wrong. You are likely in a painful condition because of an early childhood attachment wound, and you may benefit from therapy, especially somatic or trauma-informed approaches. These are great for untangling emotional webs. Building safe connections outside of the relationship is also important. Both this and therapy can help people recognize what the relationship has taught them to normalize. And note that sometimes the part of you still wanting to be chosen is not only attached to the other person, it's attached to an archetypal role. It could be the abandoned maiden, or the controlling tyrant, the self-sacrificing fixer, or the mysterious sorceress who believes being known is dangerous. It's also about reclaiming the part of yourself that became trapped inside the pattern. Take the free Hieros Gamos Alchemy archetypal quiz through the link in my bio.